Hey, 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 welcome to another very exciting episode of the Real Deal podcast on this Wednesday, February 12th, hump day. All right, let's get it. All right, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Glad to be back. Again, happy Wednesday, February 12th. Still celebrating the Philadelphia Eagles as Super Bowl champions. I'm like I said, I've been celebrating all week. They won on Sunday, dominating fashion against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm just looking forward to the parade celebrated on Sunday. Monday had the day off on Monday, kind of going through work now, so it's getting back into it. But congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles for their second Super Bowl championship and getting ready for the parade on Broad Street and headed to the Art Museum. So everyone that's out there, hopefully they stay safe and just have a good time and celebrate. I know Philadelphia Eagle fans can get a little nutty, climbing poles and things like that. But I hope everyone enjoys the time and just celebrate with the team as well. But again, your host is always Courtney Harden. You can find the show on all podcast platforms and social podcast and social media platforms where you consume your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify. We're also on BS3 Network, BS3TVLive.com, BS3 Network, the Roku channel. There, you can follow the show at The Real Deal on Twitter, X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. So yeah, all the also the social media podcast, social media platforms as well. All right. Well, I'm not going to keep my guest much longer. I met her at one of our good friends in the industry, writer, author, Mirren Fader. We're both good friends with her, and she was on her book tour here in Philadelphia. And the host was Jamie-Lee Josselyn, who is the Associate Director of Recruitment and Instructor, Creative Writing Program Director, Summer Workshop for Young Writers at the Kelly Writers House in the University of Pennsylvania. So she was the narrator, the host, and we just started talking. And like I said, we had a lot in common, and especially her sports narrative class, which I really was fascinated by. And she does tremendous work with hosting and like I said, as a teacher and director and all these things. So Jamie, welcome to the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and congrats to your Eagles. I noticed you were wearing your Eagles green, so
Yes.
you're celebrating.
Yes, still celebrating. I said to my wife, I said, I'm wearing Eagles green and Eagles gear all week. So whatever it is, if it's just a green hoodie or
Yeah,
anything like that, we started it Sunday, and
right.
now we just continue to celebrate. So thank you. But thank you for coming on.
Of
Like I
course.
said, we were part of Mirren's book tour with the Hakeem
Yeah,
Olajuwon book.
yeah.
Which you did great. I mean,
Oh,
excellent
thank you.
time just narrating, hosting it, and really driving that. And that book tour it was tremendous. That was the first time I met Mirren um, in person, which I was glad that she came here to Philadelphia.
Yeah,
And I had told her, I said, I'm definitely coming to support. So, but I'm glad I met you there as well. So thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's get started. Let's start with an intro of. I always ask my guest, who is Jamie-Lee Josselyn? How'd you get into all the things you got? Like that the resume is expansive. And
Right.
how'd you get into like the writing and the teaching and
Mhm.
recruitment? So the
Yeah.
floor is yours. You start from there.
Thank you. So I guess it's maybe starts when I came to Philadelphia in 2001 to go to college at Penn, and I grew up in. I was born in Massachusetts, and I grew up in New Hampshire, and then I came to Philly for college, and I've stayed. I've stayed in Philly and I've stayed at Penn actually since then. So
Okay.
when I was in college, I was an English major and I concentrated in creative writing. And I spent a lot of time at a place called the Kelly Writers House. And since then, I have basically refused to leave. um, so I've actually worked there since I graduated from college. I've worked there in a couple of capacities, and even like you were saying, now my job is kind of a list of bullet points. It sort of has a couple of different facets to
Yeah.
it. But I guess relevant to what we're talking about, I have been able to teach in the creative writing program at Penn since 2010. And initially and that was right around the time I was doing a graduate degree in writing.
Mm.
And I had also been a teaching assistant in some other classes. So it was kind of ready time for me to go off on my own, teaching wise, at least. Still in the in the warm home of the Kelly Writers House in our creative writing program. But I started teaching mostly memoir and creative nonfiction
Mm.
classes then, because that was what my writing background was in. And as so for the first bunch of years that I taught, I was doing that. I was just teaching, like, not really focused on sports or any particular topic.
Right.
And it was somewhere around 2017, 2018 that my colleague who runs our creative writing program, her name's Julia, she said to me, if you ever want to teach something else, just let me know. Or if you want to kind of think about a new class, or, just feel free. And so at the time I thought, like, well, what else would I possibly teach? And this is actually really relevant. You'll see in a minute. So then this thing occurred where the Eagles won the Super Bowl, right? In
Okay.
2018. And I assume this is a safe space for me to say I'm actually a New England Patriots fan.
Which I knew. Yes, I knew when we talked. Yes, I did.
Right,
I mean,
right.
yeah, you from Massachusetts, so why
Yeah, yeah,
wouldn't it
yeah.
be? Yeah, right.
So
Right.
it was what a time that was, right?
Yes.
In 2018. And so it happens, I'm a Patriots fan. Here I was living in Philly. Of course, the Patriots had been doing quite well, so I had
Mhm.
plenty to
Oh,
celebrate.
plenty of success,
Yeah,
right.
right. No boo-hooing from me, no, like, but, and I even at that time and still, I have, some friends based in Philly who are also Patriots fans,
Okay.
so I would go to their house every weekend and we would watch together. And there was even at that time a Patriots bar in Center City that I would go to. It was called Smith's. Unfortunately, the pandemic got the better of it. I don't know if it was the
Mhm.
pandemic or was it Tom Brady leaving the Patriots that
Maybe both.
yeah, made the bar
Maybe.
close.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had my little contingent. And my partner, his name is Aaron, he's an Eagles fan. So for that
Yeah.
Super Bowl, we actually watched in separate locations, because that was the best way to keep the peace in our household.
Right.
Um, so anyway, all of that happened. Of course, the Eagles won. And then I was, one of few Patriots fans in the city of Philadelphia as the Eagles were celebrating their first ever Super Bowl win. And so, like I said, there wasn't really, I had plenty of things to be happy about in terms of that team. So I was more just sort of, it felt like being a fly on a wall in a way, watching the city celebrate and watching all my friends who were so happy and everything. And I live just a couple blocks from Broad Street. So,
Mm.
you know, observing all of that, even from afar. I did not attend the parade that year. I think I might this year. But, so the storyteller in me, the writer in me, first of all, I had already written a piece about being a behind enemy lines type of fan here
Right,
in
right.
Philly. So I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking about what it means for a city when a team wins, and just, and you start to see all those great, like, personal stories that come up,
Mhm.
for individuals and families, the joy that comes from a championship and all of that. And you learn about certain players. And then, of course, Jason Kelsey got up and did what he did. And
Yes.
everybody had to applaud that, talk about a storyteller, right?
Right.
So then suddenly I was like, this could be a class. Like,
Mhm.
this is a class. And So then I got to thinking and, probably just scribbling down some notes. And then I went back to my colleague, Julia, and said, I think I've got a class that I want to teach. And I think it's called Sports Narratives. And so that started in the fall of 2018. And it's been going since then. Every fall I've been able to teach it.
I love it. And when we were talking during the book tour, and you talked about a class, you talk about that class, as you said, teaching sports narratives, and I was saying to myself, man, this would be a class I would have
Yeah.
loved. I would have,
Yeah.
and I know you invited me to come and just sit, and
Yeah.
I'm still going to take you up on that.
Yes,
I'm
please.
definitely going to come through and just sit there and just kind of just because I've been far removed from college, but
Yeah.
but it's still those are the type of classes that I had would have. If I found that, I would have loved something like that. Take journalism and
Yeah.
those things, which is great too. I mean, you have to do that in writing, and I took some media courses as well. But something that's specific for sports narratives. I mean, sports and narratives that goes hand in hand. So we're going to get into all that
Yeah.
too. But I want to ask you about uh, long form writing and where it is as you've been writing for a long time and the love of writing that you have in journalism. Long form writing is, in some ways it's a lost art or a lost form, or I should say people just don't, I don't have the time. They're
Right.
short attention span. They like reels. They love the quick
Right.
social media reels and things like that, which I think is fine too. But I love the storytelling too, just like you. I love
Right.
the long storytelling, because I don't think you can get enough from a reel or a 2 minute clip or anything like
Mhm.
that. But the storytelling itself, long form storytelling, I think is very important. How do you feel about where long form storytelling is and writing is today from where it's been from, like, say, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I think I'm not somebody, I don't think it's that productive to do the sort of like get off my lawn, the kids
Yeah.
today don't do
Right,
the,
right.
so I don't
Yeah.
I don't do that. Also, then it makes me seem very old. So I I don't want to do that. But I hear what you're saying, and all of us experience this. It's like, gosh, where did my attention span go, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even sometimes if I'm reading a book, a physical book, I have to like I have to hide my phone from
Me
myself,
too.
right?
Yep, for
um,
sure.
or put it on do not disturb or whatever the case might be. So, I hear what you're saying. I also, on the flip side of that, I love the fact that we're all, I don't really, I'll say we're all storytellers rather than we're
Mm,
all content creators or something. But like,
yeah.
I really appreciate how my students think about, the way to put a story together. And if you're
Yeah.
gonna, create, whatever it might be, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or something, and you're gonna create something, you really are trying to think about, what your audience is experiencing, what you want to say, maybe how your point of view or your insight is different from what others are offering out there. So I'm all for that. And I think like, even though we see a lot of the shorter form stuff on social media, I would also say that, especially with different streaming platforms, things like Netflix and other stuff, we also have more of an opportunity now, for better or for worse, in terms of looking at longer form things, such
Mm,
as like these limited series or these documentary
yeah.
series and
Yeah.
stuff, like things that didn't really exist, like when I was growing up. Like for instance, The Last Dance, right? I mean, how fantastic
Hmm.
was that?
Yeah.
Or even the series. I enjoyed the series Cheer, right? It
Okay.
was
Yeah.
the documentary series about the competitive cheerleading team from a community college in Texas. And that might have been like, I don't remember how many episodes, but it was like, 8 or 10 episodes long, and
Yeah.
they're an hour each, which, so it's not really like a full, it wasn't going to be a series, a show. I think they did do more seasons, but those ones maybe weren't as successful. But like
Yeah.
the initial bunch of episodes, that could have been edited down to maybe say like a 2-hour documentary or something, but I think
Yeah.
you would have lost something there, but probably wasn't quite big enough a story to do like an ongoing series,
Hmm.
things. So, I think that there's just we have more options in terms of these things, at least in terms of the video stuff. And then even with audio stuff, there are podcasts. I'm a big fan of podcasts.
Me too.
There are audio books,
Yep.
which I think are great as well. And even for some of the classics, I've been listening to Breaks of the Game, the Halberstam book about basketball. I've
Mm,
read it before, but I just have it on my Spotify, and I listen to like a chapter or so here or there when I want to, just to kind of remind myself of his story. Um, and then also with actual paper books or Kindle books or whatever, I think I know people who read on their phones. I know people who do like to get away from the screen and go and read. So I'm maybe I'm wrong to be optimistic, but I do think that all this stuff, there are a lot of other options out there for storytelling these days.
I like that. I like that perspective too, because it's interesting because my wife, she talks about, when she is on like YouTube or anything like that, she loves the reels, the short term, the minute, and she's right. Like if it catches your attention the first 30 seconds, usually you have it. And we all have that. And then, like I said, I always just like the long form more,
Yeah.
but I understand where the landscape is with when it comes to that. Like you said, The Last Dance was 6 episodes, um, tremendous. You talk about sports narrative, tremendous narrative of the Chicago Bulls and their championship run. Derek Jeter, he had a docu series where he talked about that. I like the sprint, it was the track and field,
Yeah.
where that they had that Netflix series. And yes, and there's the binge factor where
Yeah.
binging. I'm not a big fan of it, but I've done it. I
Yeah.
always just like that. I'm like very old school. I love a show
Yeah.
that comes on each week, and I'm anticipating it each week.
Right. Well, and
Uh,
isn't that what they did with The Last Dance? They
they
released
released it
early, and it
weekly
was also during it happened to
during
be
the
this.
pandemic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we were
Mhm.
all like, "Oh, good. One thing is gonna happen today, and I can
Yes. Yeah.
watch
The
The Last Dance." Yeah.
Last Dance on a Tuesday or Wednesday,
Right,
whenever it
right,
came on.
right.
So I love that. But others, like I said, if it's a 8 episode series, yes, you can watch. You can, if you're a binger, you can really go
Right,
through that in a day, 2 days,
yeah,
and sometimes that's all it is. It's just a one
right,
season of 8 episodes. So, like you
right.
said, short term, long term, it's all about adjusting. It's all about
Yeah,
really embracing it. And I do embrace it slowly, but I do embrace it. But I love reels too. I love the short term things, but I love physical copies of
yeah.
books. And I like I said, I have a Nook. I have that. I have all that too.
Mhm.
But like you said, sometimes the screen, you just want that physical copy. You just want to kind
Yeah,
of flip the pages.
totally, totally. Although speaking of the limited series, or the docu-series, I just saw this morning, there's gonna be one in, and I knew this was coming, but they just dropped the trailer for it this morning, and I felt like I could run through a wall. There's one about the Boston Celtics coming out
Oh, okay. Yes,
in
yes,
early March, I think March 3rd, 3-3, like Larry Bird. Um,
yes, for
and,
sure.
it's yeah, so I'm very excited about that one, and
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
that'd
not
be
really a binger myself. I don't know if they're gonna release it all at once or how they're
mm.
probably because it's Max, I feel like that's what they do, but, I'll probably I like everything in moderation, so I'll do
Yes,
an episode or 2 at a
I'm with you.
time, and it'll
Mhm.
just, like, give me something to look forward to, each day for a little while.
Oh, I'm definitely agree with that. I'm like that too. I'll watch one, and like I said, I watch. She said, "Let's watch another. Let's watch another." She's like a binger. I'm like,
Yeah,
I wanna wait because after that, as soon as you watch, if it's a 6 or 8 episodes, and then you're done, it's like now you're just left with, left
yeah.
empty. Is But I guess you go on to the next series, limited series, because
Right, something like that, yeah. But,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
I'm like I think you and I have a
yeah.
similar approach to
We
these
do.
things.
Yes, I agree 100%. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's like you watch something. Now, I'm a huge fan of Marvel. And, now that they have the Disney Plus shows, and if especially if it piques my interest, I can go through them. I guess
mhm,
it just depends on the type of show it is. But then others, we will watch one, and then we'll watch another one maybe later in the week. So I love that
yeah,
to extend it
right.
too. But there's something for everyone now. We didn't have this option,
Yeah,
15 10 15 15 years ago. We
right,
didn't really
right.
have this option. So
Yeah,
the pandemic kind of changed the mindset to where
Yeah.
we didn't have anything to watch, but a
Right.
lot of reruns and things like that. But
Totally.
now everyone's like is a binger, so it makes total sense. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's get into. I want to get into sports narratives
Yeah.
and how that all started. You kind of touched on a
Yep.
little bit, but how that all started, and what is the sports narrative? Like, what's the key to the teaching of the students,
Right.
and what do you get? Because, like you said, you I'm assuming you bring up a narrative of something like
Right.
you said the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. That's
Yeah.
a narrative. How did they win it? You know,
Right.
what was the season like? You know, the
Mhm.
process and things like that. But talk about what sports narrative is. I'm
Sure.
very excited about this.
Yes. So the way the class works is so it's a creative writing class.
Mhm.
So the real center of the class is the students in their own writing. So
Mhm.
the way we break that down is we look at three primary types of writing or three genres you could say. So we start with doing personal essay writing. So students are writing about themselves as athletes, they're writing about themselves as fans,
Right.
um, so just something to do, or even some students write about. I often have like one or two students in the class who aren't really athletes or fans, but who just kind of ended up in the class for whatever reason. And so they might talk about why they're not into sports or something like that, but just some kind of personal experience that they have that relates to sports. And we read a bunch of stuff relating to that as well. Including like we used to I don't have this on the syllabus anymore, but we I was just thinking about him because he's the executive producer of the Boston Celtics documentary. We used to read the intro to Bill Simmons' book, the Book of Basketball,
Oh
because
yes.
that's about his kind of growing up as a Celtics fan, and
Mhm.
his dad was a season ticket holder back when season tickets to the Celtics broke down to about $4 a game. Um, so we read that personal essay, which is the intro to his book. We read my colleagues actually, Sam Apple and Max Apple, their father and son. Actually, they've each written about being a Houston Rockets fan.
Ooh.
We read a personal essay by a writer named Megan Fulwiler that's about running, that has to do with kind of her going through a health crisis and how running became kind of a, sort of a life affirming act for her during that. So then the students write their own personal stories relating to sports. And then we transition into some fiction writing. So they do some short fiction that's somehow related to sports. So for that, I mean, we look at a short story by the writer Dani Shapiro. She wrote this story that's sort of about like this guy having kind of a midlife crisis, and he's obsessed with his rowing machine. It's a
Okay.
very dark story. It kind of like lives rent free in my head, that story.
Wow.
It's called Supernova. You can find it online. And so we read that. We also watched the movie Uncut Gems, the Adam Sandler movie from a handful of years ago. And that also has, and you can see my bias showing here, but that has a cameo by Kevin Garnett in it, and it's kind of centered around sports gambling, sports betting, because Adam Sandler's character is sort of this degenerate named Howard, and that one I love. In part, it's a good story, but what I like about that story in terms of teaching it for the students is it's it centers around the playoff series in 2012 between the Sixers and the Celtics, that went to 7 games. It was a semifinals, of course it was, because the Sixers, they don't go
Yeah,
beyond the
yeah, they don't go beyond the semifinals. Yeah, the
that
second
was
round
that
and
wasn't
bounce
very
out.
nice of me to
No,
say.
but hey, that's a hey, take a shot because
Yeah.
it's true. It's so
Right.
true.
No, but what I like about that story is it takes a series that existed in the world, right? Like a real
Mhm.
life series, and then it creates a fictional story around it with Adam Sandler's character and with Kevin Garnett going and getting this
Yeah,
gem from Adam Sandler's jewelry shop in New York City. So it basically fictionalizes a real life sports event. And I've had students kind of do their own versions of that with sporting events that have
yeah.
actually taken place, and that's really fun. So that's the fiction part of it, and then sometimes students just go, they the ones with great imaginations just go way off on their own. And
Yeah.
one of my students from last semester, Jules, she's she describes herself as not really a sports person, but she invented a sport called badge ball, which
Okay.
involves actual badgers playing this sport called badge ball. And she created a whole world around it. It's sort of like the Fantastic Mr. Fox meets a sports story or something. And
Okay.
she just like totally went for it and created this incredible world. So everybody watching and listening, remember the word badge ball, because it'll be like a feature film one day. I promise you.
Yes, it seemed like it would be.
But so anyway, so then there's the fiction stuff, and then we do some sports journalism, where students are maybe writing a feature on a particular athlete. My student Hannah wrote a great piece about one of Penn's women's basketball players this year, and who has a kind of incredible and difficult backstory. Personal backstory. So Hannah did a great profile on her. I've had people, write about other athletes at Penn, or write about, a former coach of theirs or something. And that, of course, the journalism part of the class is where we look at, for instance, Miriam Fader's work, because she's written,
Yeah.
so many wonderful profiles. And, we also, in addition to just, profiles of individual athletes, at that point in the class, we also look at some general topics. So we'll look at journalism around particular topics in sports, such as like sport athletes and mental health.
Mhm.
So we actually read the basketball player Kevin Love wrote a really powerful piece for the Players Tribune a bunch of years ago about his mental health
Yep.
struggle. So that goes back to like the personal essay idea of writing about sports. But then we also look at the writer Jackie McMullen. She had a great
Mhm.
like 5
Yeah.
or 6 part series on ESPN a handful of years ago that was about athletes and mental health. That was about NBA athletes and mental health. And there was even one part of it that was about the refs and their mental health, which is
Yeah.
not a thing we usually think about. We usually think
Right.
of other things when we think about the refs, right?
Yes.
Um, so Jackie's piece is incredible, and she features Kevin Love, and she features the Morris twins, who've also talked openly about their mental health, and she talks about um some players who've dealt with OCD issues as well. So that's a great piece. We also, of course, look at, and this was very relevant when I started teaching the class in 2018, we look at Colin Kaepernick and his story.
Yeah.
Um, and then now when we talk about that, we talk about how the view of Colin Kaepernick and his story and his protest has really shifted in the last, however many
Yes.
years, right? Like,
Right.
so we look at what went on in the year 2020, especially as it related to the NBA and the different, kind of player-led activist things going on.
Yeah.
So we've looked at a lot of that stuff. We look at a great piece about Ahmaud Arbery, the man who basically was murdered by
Yeah. Yep.
people for going on a run because he was Black and he was in a white neighborhood, and people
Yep.
decided it was that they were gonna murder him. So we look at a really wonderful piece that actually won a Pulitzer Prize about that event, that was written by Mitchell S. Jackson. Um, so so we get pretty deep with
Yeah.
stuff, but then it also leads to great conversations. And
Mhm.
um, some of the conversations are, I would think, about things that my students have maybe been thinking about on their own, or maybe never thought quite as much about. An interesting thing about teaching both, I would say, college students and also high school students is, for instance, now in 2024 and 2025, teaching about Colin Kaepernick, the students were really kind of too young when all of that happened to really
Yeah.
be thinking consciously about it. So they maybe kind of missed it a little bit, or they only knew about it what they heard, their dad say about it,
Mhm.
whatever
Yep.
that might have been, for better or for worse. And So they get to kind of, so it's a little bit of a history lesson in a way,
Yeah, yeah.
to go into that stuff. But then we also, whatever's going on in real time with the class, we follow as well. So and I know this has come up on this podcast before. We were following the story of the Sixers trying to build an arena in
Yes.
Center City, here in Philadelphia. We were following the coverage of that. We were following, the different activist movements around that. I was asking the students what they've thought about that, and a couple years ago, we were following, when Brittany Griner was
Mhm.
imprisoned in Russia, we were following all of that, and we were following the coverage of that and everything. So, and then of course we talk about our fantasy football teams and
Yes.
how the Patriots used to be good and now they're not good. And we talk, we do all the stuff, and I make fun of the Sixers or whatever I do.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, so and it's a 15-person class. So we sit around a long table, and, we have a good time in the middle of all these, cool conversations.
Yeah, I love it. And it's like you said, it's like a round table
Mhm.
of conversation, discussions, um, the narratives. Because like I said, with anything with narrative, mostly every sports story has a narrative.
Yeah.
It has something behind. Like, okay, what you say, take for instance the Sixers and the stadium
Mhm.
story. Just in case anybody know, recap the stadium. They were going to build a new stadium it's here in Center City. They had a deal, and then I'll just take it short. Billionaires got involved.
Okay.
Billionaires got involved, and there was a lot of different things, Chinatown and everything too. So there's narratives to that, and now it's being gonna we're just gonna get they're just gonna get a new stadium back on Broad Street where
Right.
they are already sharing the Wells Fargo. We're sharing with the Flyers.
Yes.
So that whole thing was that was a huge story, and I'm sure we all have opinions what we think happened, what really did happen. We don't really know, but I was saying there's more to this story. There's
Right.
always more to this story because they just shifted all the resources, all the money that they got, they involved with it, and actually having a deal, and then it shifts within after the deal within less than a month, and
Right.
now they're back. So yeah, but I really enjoy that because you said you take a lot of different perspective, a lot of different stories, and there's always opinions or you said it's creative writing. So your creativity can go way far. It could go even left field. But I like the fact that you're able to make a fiction story
Yeah.
and from there and just being able to make your own sport like like
Right.
one student did and so when students graduate and you see them how their growth, how does that make you feel when you see something like maybe they get into you said journalism or
Right.
media and everything that how does that make you feel when you see your
Oh, it's
students go beyond sports narratives and then they transition into something even bigger?
it's great. I'm fortunate. I stay in touch with a lot of my students
That's good.
from over the years. Even if I'm just seeing social media posts. Like actually, one of my former students from the class, Maggie, she works for the NFL now, and she works in
Mm,
broadcasting. So she was posting, some stuff on her Instagram about covering, about broadcasting and covering and
right.
producing the Super Bowl, right? So she's out there doing the thing, and so that's always really exciting. And I have other students from the class who have worked also for the NFL or for the Major League Baseball or in sports
Yeah.
analytics. My student Cole is a great writer, but also a numbers genius and a stats genius. So he does a lot of analytics stuff, and he comes back to class and we'll talk about his career every year when we do the class. So that's great. And then I also have a few who've gone into sports, like as players. My
Yeah.
student Jackson was drafted by the White Sox this
Okay.
year, so I guess I'm a White Sox fan now.
Yes.
um,
Right.
and another student of mine from way back when I first started teaching the class, Sean, he also played some professional baseball. Um, and so that's, it's very exciting. And then I also think um, something we talk about a lot at Penn is, we have plenty of students who go into journalism, who go into the film world, who go into other aspects of writing, whether it's publishing or things like that. Um, or who go into teaching, or other kinds of stuff that could be relating to writing. Even those who don't go into those fields, just writing is everywhere. First of all,
Yeah,
storytelling is everywhere.
for sure.
Communications, it's all part of it. So I hope to think, I haven't been in touch with, for instance, Jackson, who's on the White Sox now, but I hope to think, he can approach his time as a professional athlete, with a certain humanity that he might not have. We also in class have read Doug Glanville, who was a professional baseball player, actually,
Yeah,
and he's a Penn alum, but he's also a writer and a broadcaster himself. So, maybe people can just think about storytelling or telling their own stories or whatever, just a little more clearly, having had a classroom experience like ours. On top of their other studies at Penn. And, that's part of what I love about the class is, just the environment of it, the fact that we all know each other pretty well, the fact that
hmm
it's not about me, it's about the students getting to know one another and collaborate and give each other feedback on their stuff. And I don't know that that's always going on in every other classroom, right? So
right.
I think just to kind of create that closeness, and that can happen in any classroom, and frankly not even in just a small classroom. If you have the right teacher, you can create that even in big classrooms. But I
Yeah,
have an advantage, first of all, to have a small classroom, and then also to have with for instance something like sports at the center. You kind of know, with few exceptions, like my badge ball student,
yeah,
she was
yeah.
buddies with a lot of the other people because she's also a journalist, even though she's not a sports journalist. But
hmm
you still, everybody comes in, and on the first day we go around and everybody says what their approach to sports is, or what their background is and what their rooting interests are. So we already have, okay, here are our Eagles fans. Okay, this
Yeah,
people like
right.
New York teams. Okay, does anybody else like this team or that team, or who likes college football and stuff? So we already have this really like personal kind of connection, that really sustains us, I would say, throughout the semester, which also helps when maybe when somebody brings, say a personal essay that's about a topic that's really hard, or we
hmm
disagree on some of the more political stories or something.
Right.
You have that base, just like in any community, um,
hmm
that you can kind of build off of. And it's not like we agree on every single thing, but
Right.
there's like a connection and a level of respect there that I think works really well.
I love that, and you're right. You're not going to always agree. You said you're a Patriots fan. I'm an Eagles fan, so there's right there's
Yeah.
a disagreement,
But
but
we
it's
both wanted the Chiefs to
yeah, we
lose.
built for sure. For sure. We agree on that. Yes, we definitely agree on that. I love, but like I told you before, I think it's a much needed class just for students, journalism, sports journalism, writing. I think it's very important. I was like, yes, I would love that. So I am going to come the
Please,
when they
yes,
open this.
open invitation.
Just pop. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm gonna pop in and just sit there and listen. So, all
Yeah,
right, just got a couple more before I let you go. I wanted to
yeah,
ask you about. We got to talk the Super Bowl,
yes,
Eagles and Chiefs.
yes.
What would you say was the narrative? The main narrative. I'm gonna use your sports narrative. What was the main narrative of this game to you?
Yeah.
If you had to write about it, what would you say was the narrative for the end result of this game, or even leading into this game?
Well, I mean, I would think in a way what you might say is, if anybody, and I don't mean any disrespect at all to anybody, I'm sure there are some diehard Eagles fans out there who would disagree with me, but I think if anybody had said the game would go the way it went, where it was
Mm,
just completely dominant performance by
yeah.
the Eagles in all respects, everybody would say, "I'm sorry, ma'am, have you ever seen Patrick Mahomes play
Yeah,
football?"
right,
Right?
right.
Like,
Yeah, no, it's
so,
true.
it was just, we were kinda, everybody was thinking, and I think I am not a sports betting person, because I feel like the second I start doing that, like, I'll have to get
Yeah.
rid of this house or something.
Yes.
Um, but I don't do that, but I my understanding was that like the betting lines was that it was very gonna, the Chiefs
Yeah,
were
it
slightly
kept
favored
moving.
by like
Yep.
a point and a half or
Yeah,
something.
it moved. It was up to 2 at one point. It started
Right,
at 2, then it went down a point, then it went up to 1.5, and I
right,
think it ended at 1, I believe. So
okay,
basically even, you might as
right.
well
So it
say.
was,
Yeah.
so that's a narrative, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So,
Yes.
but yeah, so it was, and you would hear different people go back and forth. And my guy Bill Simmons was saying I was going to bet on the Eagles, but then he has this whole playoff manifesto thing that he looks at, and he
Yeah.
ended up betting on the Chiefs. Sucks to be him. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Stuck with his first
yeah,
initial thought on that. Yeah.
he's.
Yeah.
I think he's got plenty of money, so he'll be all right. But
Yeah, he'll be okay. Yeah.
but but so I think it was just, but then of course, the Chiefs were trying to three-peat, and
Yeah.
not to like, this is a place where it's really not all that appropriate to insert my own sports narratives here,
Mhm.
or sports narrative here, but like all the Patriots fans, right? Like didn't want Mahomes to
Right, to do it. Yeah.
three-peat. Then people are gonna, that's something that Tom Brady was never able to do, the Patriots were never able to do. So if suddenly Patrick Mahomes is a three-peat, then what does that mean for us, and
Yeah.
our pride and Brady's legacy? And I was at the party I was at. We were, of course, all watching. It was all Eagles fans, and we were like a half a block away from Broad Street. But I couldn't really hear the commentators, which was kind of a bummer for me, since my guy was.
Yeah, Brady was
but
that's
but
yes, he was
something I heard
broadcasting.
afterwards, they were saying like Brady was like giddy, because of the
Yeah.
way it was going, even though he's supposed to be like neutral. I mean, he wasn't like showboating or anything
Mhm.
like that, but like, it it was a good story for him, right? That
Yeah.
and probably surprising for him, because I imagine, in preparing to call a broadcast like that, you think of what you might say if it's a like Mahomes legacy game, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
and so you probably think, and I'm not a sports broadcaster. I think that would be a really hard job, but
Mm.
you might write some stuff down or have some notes of like things I like, well crafted things one might say if it becomes kind of a momentous day for either
Mhm.
team, frankly.
Yeah, right.
But you have kind of your go-to lines, so that way you can be ready in the moment. And just like journalists start writing their stories before a game ends, right? um, just so they can kind of get it out and get it done
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. But yeah, so I just think it was really, it was surprising in a way. And um a student of mine who I ran into the other day, she doesn't really watch football very much, but because she's a college student in Philadelphia, she was excited to watch the Eagles and everything.
Yeah.
And she was like, I was so nervous during the game, and I just kept thinking, and I was like, fair, but also that was probably the least nerve-wracking game a fan of any team could watch.
Mhm. Yeah. Right.
Even
Yeah.
though we're all thinking, those of us who have watched a lot of sports are thinking, well, is this like Patrick Mahomes 28-3 moment to bring up that
Right.
other team
Yes.
again? But like, and even, people at the party I was at, even when they were up by so much, at halftime
Yep.
and into the third, people were saying, if anybody can come back, it might
It
be
would, but yes, Patrick
Mahomes,
Mahomes.
right? And
Yes.
I'm sure a
Mhm.
lot of other Eagles fans,
Yep. I felt that way
yeah,
for
we're
sure.
thinking that. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it just never came. But well, I don't know, what was your experience? You were watching, you're an Eagles fan.
Yeah, to use the narrative, I think there was a couple, and I agree with the legacy thing with Mahomes. If they would have three-peated, because even heading into this game, it was talking about, well, if Mahomes wins this, where does he land of all-time great? Like he's an all-time great already right now,
Yeah,
three-time champion, Super Bowl champion. But it's one of those things like, okay, if he gets four, he's in a like a illustrious group like with
right,
Brady that's won four or more, Brady, Bradshaw, Montana.
right,
So if he wins that, and they were talking, well, if he wins, is he in the conversation with Tom Brady? And I'm thinking, okay, yes, the narrative would have changed, but now it's changed to the other side now where
right,
he's 3-2. And they're, I think it's gonna combine. I think they said 40 points of the losses he's had.
right,
Brady's 3 losses in Super Bowl, It's
Right.
like 15 total,
Right. Yeah.
15 points total. So now they're thinking that's a narrative like, okay, we shouldn't put Mahomes in that bracket yet. Because
Right.
first plus Brady played for 24 years.
Right.
Mahomes is in his eighth year, ninth year, something like
Yeah. I
that.
mean, he's
So
not, I don't even think
yeah,
he's 30. Right.
yeah,
So,
not even 30.
yeah.
So I thought that was one of the three-peat was a
Right.
narrative. I agree with you on. I definitely picked the Eagles to win, not in this fashion, not this
Yeah.
dominant.
Yeah.
If you said if anybody was to say, "Oh, we thought this was going to happen,"
Right.
I
That
want to
the like
be
effective score of the game was 40-6, you know, for
46.
the
Yeah, to the two
garbage
cheap
time.
the two cheap
Yeah.
touchdowns at the
Right.
end, the garbage time touchdowns in the end. But it's one of those things you're thinking, wow, the Eagles were really like on. They were they had a game plan. They executed it defensively. They just they didn't blitz. They kept the front
Right.
four, and they
Yep.
pressured Mahomes. It reminded me a few years back with Tampa Bay. Tom Brady, Tampa
Hmm.
Bay beat them, and it was the same formula. You keep Mahomes contained, you have a good chance. And I think the last narrative, like you said, even though they were up 24-0 at halftime, they got the ball. They got the ball in the first half, in the second half first. And Kansas was like, if they score here comes momentum. Here
Yeah.
comes the 123 type of thing. I wasn't satisfied till we got up even big. I said, we got to get this league got to be larger. It's got to be
Yes.
30, 34. They got to
Yep. And
34.
then it was, right?
And then it was the third quarter, it was 34-0. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, I guess we can kind of sit back and still, you still feel nervous. So those are my big, if I was to pick a narrative, those would be and I think the last one would be the Jalen Hurts narrative of
Totally.
the year he proved time and time he's a winner. And when his back is against the wall, he produces in the biggest stage. He
Yeah.
produces, and he won MVP. And I was excited for him because I think, to me, for with Jalen Hurts, I think we forgot how good he really is. In 2022, he outplayed Mahomes in the Super Bowl. It's for the
Right.
last 2 minutes. He didn't get the ball back, and it was
Right.
Patrick Mahomes. They
Right.
got on a penalty and won.
Yeah.
But he had a great year then, and there was just so many negative things that I think was uncalled for. And I think he just the thing I really like about him, he said he keeps the main thing. It's all about winning.
Yeah.
And he went out there and he produced, and
Yeah.
he's an MVP Super Bowl champion.
Right. And just like, it's, as someone who's not like specifically an Eagles fan, I mean, Jalen Hurts is as likable as
Yeah.
an athlete
Yes.
gets, right? I mean,
Mhm.
he's so cool, first of all.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like keeps his composure, he's locked in,
Yep.
he's super humble.
Very humble. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And just, works really hard and
Yeah.
seems and supports his guys, all the things,
All
right?
the things. Yeah. He's that
Yeah.
type of guy, quarterback. And when the Eagles started winning, when they was 2-2, and they had to buy, and they figured we got to just go through Saquon Barkley. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
And they went on that 10-game win streak, and Jalen was all about, I don't have to throw for 300, 400, 500 yards. I can, but
Right.
it wasn't for that. We were winning, riding with Saquon. And then there was the narrative of Jalen Hurts. Can they win with him throwing the football? They proved that. They sure proved
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks.
And something I have since heard, all right, I think Jalen Hurts said this. This sort of leaked, and he didn't really want this to get out there, but that his phone background, I don't know if you
Yes.
saw,
Yeah. With the confetti. It was the
yeah, it was a
confetti from 2 years ago.
photograph of
Mhm.
of him walking off the field after losing the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So it's
Mhm.
him walking off the field with all the red and yellow
Yeah, confetti. Yeah,
confetti.
yeah. Mhm.
And that's been his phone background. And I think somebody, like I said, somebody leaked that. Like he didn't say, "This is my phone background. I'm locked
I'm gonna
in."
get revenge. Yeah, yeah.
A thing an
Mhm.
athlete could do, and I wouldn't actually have a problem with that.
Me
But
either.
he didn't want that. That was actually just for him, really. And it actually reminded me, I'm also a geek about distance running.
Mm.
Um, I'm a runner myself, although not competitive at all.
Right.
But I follow competitive distance running, and there's a runner named Des Linden who won the Boston Marathon in 2018. And it's rare for an American runner to win a major
Oh
marathon.
yeah, yeah.
But she had come in second in the Boston Marathon previously, maybe more than once, but she had been kind of right there and just hadn't made it happen. But she also had her photograph. She had one of of herself losing the Boston Marathon,
Mm,
basically. So she lost by just like 2 seconds one year. And so she kept a photograph of the woman crossing the line and her a little bit back. And that was her motivating,
okay.
factor. So that was the thing that kind of got her out the door every day. So as soon as I heard, you have to be a distance running fan, I guess, to hear Jalen Hurts say that, after winning a Super Bowl, and you're like, just like Des Linden,
Yes.
um, but maybe a few of us thought that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I love that idea of just, kind of using the low point as motivation, and then
Mhm.
getting to hear the story of of the success or the high point.
I love, yeah. It was as I said, Eagles fan, a great Super Bowl. Just to now, like I said, we're all gonna celebrate
Yeah,
here in a million people
yeah.
for
I know.
the parade. All right, last one. 'Cause I know I gotta let you go. I could have talked to
Yeah,
you for hours.
I know. This is fun.
This is it. But a lot of fun. I love this conversation. But I was gonna ask the future of journalism. Where do you see journalism and writing going for the next 5 years? And my last question is, what does Jamie love to do? Talk about this and I love to do outside of the sports narrative and the
Yeah.
journalism and writing. So those will be my last two questions for you.
Well, to put on my, to look at my crystal ball,
Yes, yeah.
um, I think I'm always happy to take as optimistic a view as I can. I mean, I know that journalism's a tough industry and
Yeah.
everything, and it's constantly changing. And we have a lot of conversations, up at Penn and up at the Writers House about that. But I think that the good news is, like, places like the one where I get to hang out, we have a lot of people coming in and mentoring, talking with our students all the time about how to position themselves in terms of, how they might break into journalism, how to maybe be flexible in terms of what and how they want to, write or cover certain topics. So it might not look like, it's not going to look like just being um, a reporter all the time. You're going to have to maybe
Yeah.
have some audio production, like, skills. You're going to have to maybe know how to do video content. You're going to have to
Mhm.
just be able to write in all different modes and stuff, however it might happen. But you can do that, right? And as
Yeah.
long as you're strategic about that, you can kind of make yourself useful, right? In a different, in a job somewhere. So I think that, and like I was saying before, storytelling is everywhere. It's gonna continue to change. It's gonna continue to look different. So it doesn't necessarily have to be writing full length articles for a particular paper,
Yeah.
every single day. It might be, in the social media world. It might be something people are doing in their spare time. They might have a day job and be working on writing in the evenings, or on the weekends or something. Um, it could be freelancing. It could be, writing about other people's writing. It could be,
Mm,
all
yeah.
these different kinds of things. So I think, part of doing it is you just have to be creative about how and when you do it and how you
Mhm.
position yourself in it. Um, and, then as for me, your very last question, yeah, like I said, I'm a runner. So the thing I do to clear my head, is just, get out and run a few miles, and sometimes more than a few miles. Um, but that's kind of my way to spend time outside. Um, it's my way to be away from a screen, for instance.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
it's a way when I travel. It's a way to explore new places and just get to know wherever I am and stuff. And even though I also procrastinate going on my runs, as many runners do, it's like I haven't gone on my run yet today, but I'm going to. So before it gets dark. But
Yeah.
but yeah, like, I think that's a big part of who I am and what I do. And then, um, I'm one of the people, at least right now, I'm enjoying my regular season basketball, my league pass.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's good for
Yes.
me. So, that's good. I have a dog. He's a good boy. So I'm a big dog person.
Right.
So I'm often, hanging out with him and, exploring the city and all of its smells for the dog's sake. Uh,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and we live in South Philly, so we live near Pat's and Gino's, so that's like his favorite place to
Okay.
walk
Yeah. Yeah.
is, because he can smell all the cheesesteaks all the time.
Yes.
But
Cheesesteaks galore
yes,
everywhere.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, just being in touch with all my people, all my buddies and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, all right. South Philly. Yes, we lived in South Philly when we moved here in 2013, and for the first 8 years we were in South Philly,
Okay.
and near the stadiums, as you said, we were like
Okay.
10
Yeah.
minutes away,
Yeah.
um, right there, and by Broad Street, so we were very close. And now we live in West Philly,
Yep.
so about 20 minutes away or so. So
Yeah.
it's not too bad. Yeah. So, but yeah, this has been so much fun. Really enjoyed this. I knew I would. When we connected, I like I said, we just had to find the time. I wanted to find the time to have you on, and so again, I thank you. Can't thank you enough for doing this. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you again, and
Of
let
course.
everyone know they can actually follow you on social media. They want to reach out for
Yeah.
advice or
Sure.
anything, or even like you said, I think I saw an article that you did maybe a couple years ago. They profiled or they featured you, and then you were talking about you get a lot of emails, probably writing samples
I
and
do.
things
Yeah.
like that. You get a lot of things that are people maybe ask for advice or maybe want to get into the
Yeah.
class or
Right.
a
Right. Right.
pen, anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but everyone
Well,
know where they can find you
yes. Well,
on all those platforms.
people can find me. I'm on Instagram, JL Josselyn. So JLJOSSELYN. That's where I am on Instagram. I think it's the same thing. I'm on Blue Sky now, although I haven't like really made it
I gotta get
happen
on
yet.
that. I
I'm on
definitely
the
gotta get on
thing
that.
I'm on the bad thing that we're not supposed to use anymore.
Yeah.
But also JL Jocelyn. So, you can find me. And also, yes, my email address is very, very findable. You're welcome to get in touch that way as well. And this has been great. And I will be thinking of you. I'm sure I won't see you on Friday at the parade because a couple other people are going to be there.
Yes,
But
just
I
a
will
couple,
be
right?
thinking of you. And I hope you have a great time celebrating on Friday.
Yes, yes, yeah. Like you said, probably won't see you either way. There's so like I said, just a few people are gonna be here.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to we're gonna go back to South Philly where we used to live, park our car,
Oh,
and
cool.
somewhere along
Yeah.
Broad Street, probably Oregon and Broad or whatever
Yeah.
that's where we used to live. So
Okay.
somewhere around there, we're gonna try to get to the same spot we were in 2018.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. I know people are going to be out there probably 4, 5, 6 in the morning,
Yes.
near the stadiums or by
Yeah.
the art museum. But we're going to just get on
Yeah.
Broad and see them come by and take some video, wave,
Yeah. You're gonna.
enjoy some of the fans, and come back home. So
Yeah.
that's
Great.
it, and then watch the rest of it at home.
Right.
So,
Yeah. That
yeah,
makes sense. That makes
yeah.
sense.
So,
Yes.
but again, I really enjoyed this. Thank you again. I have some clips up on Instagram. I got to get on Blue Sky. That's the only one people have been pushing me to get on Blue Sky, and I've been procrastinating
Yeah.
jumping on.
Yeah.
I said, let me just sign up and start following everyone from journalism and media and things like
Right.
that. So yes, but
Yeah.
again, I can't thank you enough. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your week and weekend.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
again.
All right. Oh, you guys have a good one. Thanks everyone that tuned in and really appreciate it. And until next time, everyone have a safe and rest of the week. And as always, God bless.